What's going on there, Space Monkeys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden, and in this episode we're going to be talking about bad news for Steve Donziger. He's the lawyer that sued Chevron and won for $9.5 billion back in the 90s for some of the horrible things they were doing in Ecuador. An update on his conviction, or what happened with his contempt of court. And then we're going to talk about Daniel Hale. He was the whistleblower who basically let us know about the United States drone program and released a bunch of information to The Intercept's Jeremy Scahill and basically blew the whistle the same way that Snowden did on the NSA spying and Assange did on our war crimes in Afghanistan and Iraq and yada, yada, yada. So we're going to talk about both of those individually, and it's not good news on either front, unfortunately, guys. But first, I want to give a shout-out to Lee Camp. He's got a new website up, and I'm going to put the link to it below. It's called radindiemedia.com. I'm going to start looking at it more, a lot more nowadays, because he basically compiles articles from all over the internet from indie media websites, and it's really, really cool so far. I think he just came up with it recently, so that's really, really dope. I'm going to put that up in the or down in the description box. Let's talk about Steve Donziger. Okay, so he was the Chevron lawyer, and to give you a crash course on what he did, he sued Chevron as an environmental lawyer back in the 90s. Chevron was Texaco back then, and they were drilling in Ecuador, and they were literally like spilling oil everywhere, pouring it into waterways, leaving it in these open pits, and they told all of the indigenous farmers and the Amazonians down there that it was basically like, it was medicine, it's not bad for you. Obviously a lie. A whole bunch of these farmers died. A whole bunch of them got cancer. There were birth defects. It was the worst things you can possibly imagine, and they're like living in oil pits is what's happening, and Texaco did that on purpose. So they eventually were bought out by Chevron, and Donziger went down there, collected all the evidence he needed, sued them, and won $9.5 billion for those indigenous farmers. What does Chevron do? They leave the country and have not paid any of that money, and have spent since that time, I think that was in 2010, 2011 or something. What ended up happening is they went on the warpath against Donziger to discredit him in an attempt to make sure that they don't have to pay that near $10 billion that he won. So it's been a long smear campaign where the judge that's in this case is the Chevron judge, Lewis Kaplan. He's one of the dirtiest judges ever. He's actually mentioned in Matt Taibbi's The Divide, which we're reading right now on this show. He was involved with talking about how companies and CEOs should be able to, or CEOs should be able to use their company's resources to defend themselves in court. So this dude is fucking dirty as hell. He's the Chevron judge, and they have a private law firm going after Donziger with a whole bunch of ties to Chevron. It's the Chevron law firm with the Chevron judge all going after the environmental activist lawyer who sued Chevron. So it's a huge smear campaign, and Donziger has been with an ankle bracelet on house arrest for 2 years. Okay? Last thing I want to tell you here is he hasn't been convicted of anything. They claim, Chevron claims that he was racketeering, but that a lot of the people that said he was, or one of the witnesses that said he was racketeering, one of the main witnesses, has since testified that he lied. So we know that that guy was lying. And so the case against Donziger is super flimsy, and yet he still spent over 2 years in his apartment on house arrest. And even if he were convicted of what they say that he did, the most that he could spend in jail was 90 days in prison. So he should get time served because he's been on house arrest for like 700 days. So I'm going to read to you here from Common Dreams. They'll give you a better idea of what's going on. That's what happened with Donziger. It's just Chevron getting their way through rigging the legal system to basically punish an environmental lawyer who got them in court. So let's see. Here it is right here. Human rights lawyer Stephen Donziger said Monday that he is a victim of an obvious travesty of justice and vowed to appeal after judge found him guilty on 6 counts of criminal contempt of court. Now, it'll say what that was for. That's also bogus. The ruling by the U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska marks the latest development in a case that stems from Donziger's role in securing a historic multi-billion-dollar settlement against Chevron over the oil giant's devastating pollution in the Ecuadorian Amazon. Chevron has not paid any of the 2011 settlement money, which the corporation claims was improperly obtained. While the Ecuadorian Supreme Court upheld the original settlement, Chevron has relentlessly pushed its fraud claims in U.S. court. In 2014, a federal judge with connections to Chevron, that's Lewis Kaplan, ruled, based on testimony from a witness who has since admitted to lying, like I said, that Donziger was guilty of, quote, a pattern of racketeering activity, a charge that he has denied. Donziger was then ordered to turn over his cell phone and computer to Chevron. When he appealed on the grounds that the devices contained client information, U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan hit the attorney with criminal contempt charges that ultimately landed him under house arrest, where he has remained for more than 700 days. In a statement Monday, Donziger characterized Preska's ruling as the, quote, latest attempt by Chevron and its judicial allies to criminalize me and to send a message of intimidation to legitimate human rights lawyers who successfully challenge major polluters of the fossil fuel industry, end quote. So this is very sad, but even Donziger has said before he knew it was likely that he was going to get charged for contempt of court. So this is not a surprise to him nor to me either. Now, eventually they're going to have to let him out, but I mean, with the way that they own the system and the way that they, the judge owns like stock in Chevron, for real, like he has major investments in Chevron. They're going to drag it out as long as possible, and all they're doing is, this is martyrdom, guys. They're putting Donziger's body up high for the populace to see, to send a warning to other environmental lawyers or, even people like whistleblowers, like I'm about to talk about Daniel Hale. If you fuck with the U.S. government and U.S. corporations, we will ruin your life. That's what this is all about. So I'll keep you up to date on Donziger. Let's move on to Daniel Hale. And like I said, guys, Daniel Hale was an analyst, I believe. He was in the U.S. military for a while, and then he did some private contracting. And he was the one that blew the whistle and gave classified documents that showed the U.S. Drone strikes were killing a tremendous amount of civilians, among other things, to Jeremy Scahill at The Intercept. And it was one of the biggest leaks ever. It was super important for us to know the things that Daniel Hale did reveal to us. So I'm going to, again, read to you here another article from Common Dreams. That's why I use them so often. They have such good reporting here. Explaining to you what happened to Daniel Hale. He is now going to spend 45 months in prison, so almost 4 years. He was sentenced earlier this week, I think, maybe yesterday. So let's read to you here from Common Dreams. Human rights and press freedom advocates expressed dismay on Tuesday when whistleblower Daniel Hale, who pled guilty earlier this year to violating the Espionage Act, was sentenced to 45 months in prison for sharing with a journalist classified information about the U.S. military's drone assassination program. Quote, whistleblower Daniel Hale has just been sentenced to 45 months in prison for exposing U.S. war crimes, said the anti-war group Code Pink. Quote, while his sentencing isn't the 10 years we feared, it is 45 months too long. Hale's lawyers argued in court papers that his humanitarian motives and the lack of harm resulting from his actions warranted a lenient sentence. Quote, he committed the offense to bring attention to what he believed to be immoral government conduct committed under the cloak of secrecy and contrary to public statements of then-President Barack Obama regarding the alleged precision of the United States military drone program. The defense attorneys Todd Richmond and Cadence Mertz argued. Prosecutors, however, claimed that Hale's leaks posed a greater risk to national security than those of the reality winner, the former NSA whistleblower released last month after serving 4 years of a 63-month sentence, the longest ever imposed for disclosing classified government information to the media. They sought a sentence significantly longer than the winner's. U.S. District Judge Liam O'Grady said 45-month prison sentence he gave Hale was necessary to deter others from disclosing government secrets, the Associated Press reported. Edward Snowden, who has lived in Russia with asylum protection since leaking classified materials on U.S. government mass surveillance in 2013, was among those who denounced the judge's decision. Quote, his crime was telling the truth. 90% of those killed by U.S. drones are bystanders, not the intended targets, said Snowden. He should have been given a medal. I happen to agree. This is ridiculous. 4 years is, again, that's 4 years too much. And, again, this is martyrdom. That's what they're doing here, guys. They're raising the body of Daniel Hale up high for all other whistleblowers to see as a warning so that they know that even if they're right morally and they really don't cause any harm, the U.S. government or a corporation that you're blowing the whistle on will destroy your life. So he's a hero. What he did is a moral imperative in my mind. I consider Julian Assange and Snowden and Daniel Hale heroes. I consider Steve Donziger a hero as well. And look at what our country does to those people. It's really, really quite sad. So I'm going to post this article below as well. And then there's another article that I think you should read. It's by Chris Hedges. It came out yesterday. And it is awesome. It's a little bit long, and it talks about, it like elaborates on Daniel Hale and the grotesque nature of what we do to whistleblowers in the United States. And as you guys know, I love Chris Hedges, and if you enjoy his writing, it's a really, really good article from Mint Press News. I will post that below as well. So not a terribly good day for whistleblowers or environmental lawyers who take down large corporations in America, but I see a pattern here, guys. Do you? These people are heroes. They should not be going through this at all. And if I were king of the world, I'd be pardoning them all, dropping the charges against all these people, and giving them reparations for how the United States or corporations have ruined their lives for essentially just doing the right thing. So, on another note, lastly here, guys, Joe Biden got approved for $25 billion extra dollars for the Pentagon and the defense budget. He's now up to $778 billion for the military budget. It was only $740 under Trump. So tell me again how this is building back better. Tell me again how this is the lesser of two evils. Motherfucker just bombed Somalia. I mean, drives me crazy. You know what we could have done with that $25 billion? We could end homelessness permanently in the U.S. for $20 billion. We'd have $5 billion left over. You know what else we could have done? We could vaccinate the entire globe. We could get ahead of COVID, and it cost $25 billion for us to vaccinate the entire globe and get herd immunity in a way that would actually put COVID in a corner rather than COVID putting us in a corner. But no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to give it the fucking Pentagon. Oy vey. Oh, God. This is just setting Trump up for victory. This is setting Trump up for victory. And I can see it right now with the moves that he's making and Ron DeSantis and him lining themselves up against like social media censorship. They're going to wipe the floor with Biden or Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg. It's going to be nasty. And the way that Biden keeps running things right now is losing people confidence that things are going to get any better. I saw a poll on that too. Like people's confidence that things are going to improve dropped like 20% since May. Build back better, my ball sack. Anyway, keep fighting the good fight out there, guys. Just because things look bleak does not give us an excuse to stop fighting. I'll talk to you guys later.